out his way, but where he could run the business the way he wanted to run the business.
Who dug the hole first?
We watch from behind the fence as they load 2 blue tarps into the back of a wagon. I can only assume it's my mom and dad.
All the rivers are out of their banks. Roadways flooded.
This wasn't just a normal disappearance.
Somebody's trying to cover up evidence. This is foul play. He didn't know the difference between company money and personal money.
And we didn't help search.
Holy crap, he really is involved in this.
Bonne Terre is a quaint little rural community. It's a wonderful place to grow up. Very resilient, very loving, very caring people. And everybody knows everybody. People enjoy the scenery and picturesque views.
But on September 16th, 1994, the normally tranquil setting is teeming with law enforcement.
In September of '93, when an elderly couple went missing, we received just torrential rains that day. There was historical flooding. After the storms, there's still absolutely no sign of them whatsoever. It had been close to a year. That's very frustrating for us as investigators to not be able to give someone the answers that we know are out there.
A year after the disappearance, a tip has led police to a small, unassuming farm.
The location was a well-kept property, small house, kept yard, everything was neat.
There's a barn by an abandoned horse run.
We discovered a small, flat pile of manure, straw, kind of elongated and spread out.
Working on information from the tip, investigators focused their efforts on the manure pile.
They removed all the manure and got down to clean ground. And then they grid that off with strings and stakes. And then it's a painstaking excavation.
Take it out?
Yep.
I remember the tarp being removed from the grave, from the ground. And then, of course, what we found inside. It was 2 bodies badly decomposed. They were wrapped together in a tarp. It was not a pretty sight. Not something that you want to describe to the family.
When you find human remains, bodies in somebody's backyard, you have to ask yourself, what happened to this couple? Why would someone choose this backyard as a location to dispose of the bodies?
Life in Bonne Terre, Missouri is a vision of times gone by.
It's a church-going town. It's a Catholic church, Methodist church, and Baptist church. Really, really good people.
Among the town's faithful are retirees Charles and Grace Lewis.
My parents were really pillars of the community. My dad was very heavily involved in church. My mom, of course, was a sidekick. He didn't go anywhere without her.
Together, Charles and Grace raised 8 children.
We were raised in the St. Louis general metro area. After my grandmother died in 1973, my parents decided to take over the family farm and move down here. By the time we first moved down to Bonne Terre, 3 of my brothers had passed. My brother Chuck was grown. So when we were moving down, it was myself, my 3 sisters, my mom and dad. My father was an accountant for a firm called Stephen Nicholas in downtown St. Louis.
For over a decade, Charles commutes daily to St. Louis, all the while helping Grace and the kids care for the large property.
We had 400 acres, but most of it was left heavily wooded. It had 3 springs and 2 creeks that ran through it. We ran roughly anywhere between 20 and 30 head of cattle.
Life in Bonne Terre is idyllic for the Lewis family. When Charles is home from work, the kids all pitch in to bale hay and feed cattle.
Every Sunday, after we went to church, we went down the creek to a little place we call Bathtub Falls. And there, we'd build a fire, and the kids, we'd all go swimming. I treasure those moments.
By the early 1990s, the children are all grown retirement.
My dad was always in the garden, taking care of that, and the hay and things to help feed the cattle.
Making use of his accounting background, Charles Lewis also keeps the books at a family business run by his children.
My brother Chuck had a data storage business concept. He got some investors, including my father, involved. And I came in 1986. My sister Mary worked in the same facility. And over time, the business grew, was doing very well.
In September 1993, southern Missouri braces for violent weather.
You see in the news that a storm is coming. At the time, nobody really knew the severity of it, so you just assume it's going to be the thunderstorm.
But the rains don't stop, and the next afternoon, the Lewis siblings get worrying news.
It was actually my sister Susan who first realized something was wrong. My parents had made plans to actually visit her that afternoon and, take her shopping. They didn't show up, and she really got concerned. So we called, no answer. Called, no answer. I said, so I'm going to drive down there. My sister Mary said, I'm going with you. On the way out the door, my wife said, you know what? I'm going to call the Bonne Terre police and have them do a wellness check.
As the skies darken, Mike and Mary arrive at the farm.
We didn't see the truck. So that was odd. And we saw the lawnmower sitting by the hay bales, which right away, like, why in the world isn't the lawnmower in the barn with the rest of the equipment? We went up to the door and it didn't open right away. That's weird. My parents generally didn't lock the doors. We walked around back and we actually jimmied the back lock to get in the back door.
Inside, things are stranger still. Mike and Mary find a full pot of beans still on the stove.
Of course, we're calling like crazy, we're yelling out, Mom, Dad, Mom, Dad. And no answer. And we started thinking, okay, well, it's because Dad decided he had to go check on a cow or something like that, took the truck out there to the back part of the farm. Mom went with them, and something happened. As we began to search the farm, it began raining harder and harder. And with the storms, the creeks went up over both bridges, which are on the farm. I told my sister Mary, I said, we're going to have to get back to the house. And we had to get in, before the floodwaters cut us off. Then we see a car driving up the road, and we're like, they're back. Wherever they were, they're back. It wasn't them. It was local police department. Your heart just sinks.
47.
His radios just start squawking. Because now this is the storm of the century. People are in trouble. Roads are flooded. Volunteer fire department having to go out and do rescues.
With the waters rising, there is no option but to abandon the search for the night.
Are they flooded, downstream somewhere? Maybe my dad had gotten the truck stuck out in the field somewhere. Their mom was hurt and they just couldn't get back to a phone. You still cling to that hope that they're actually alive somewhere.
This wasn't just a normal disappearance.
You didn't know the difference between company money and personal money.
Well, they send out trained cadaver dogs. That hits you.
Charles and Grace Lewis have gone missing from their 400-acre farm in Bonne Terre, Missouri.
There was a historic, and I do mean a historic, storm.
All the rivers were out of their banks. The roadways flooded, people trapped in vehicles. That complicated things considerably when the Lewises went missing.
Once the water went up, we couldn't access the back part of the farm. We had to wait for the creek to go down before the sheriff could come out.
It's an agonizing 2-day wait before investigators and family members can conduct a thorough search of the Lewis property.
400-acre farm is quite a bit of land, and it's not just open fields. You have wooded areas. We had tracking dogs with people on horseback. We really pulled out stops and launched a search for them and found nothing. So the lead investigator then turned his focus on the inside of the house.
Dinner, was starting to be prepared, yet not all the groceries fully unpacked. Police obviously tell you right away, make a list of things that are missing. There's dust all around where the VCR sat, but the VCR is gone. My mom's was on the table, and it had cash still in it, which is odd. Okay, well, if you're going to rob somebody, take the cash.
They should have taken as opposed to this little VCR.
Why would the Lewises leave her purse on the kitchen table, but take a VCR?
It was strange.
We got the Lewis's pickup truck entered into the state computer system as involved with the missing persons case, so if anybody did cross it, we'd be notified. But then we had to get as much background information on the Lewises as we possibly can. Who is their family? Who's their friends? Where did they go?
The last person to speak with the Lewis couple was their daughter, Mary.
My sister Mary said she was on the phone with my mom, and my mom said, "Oh, I gotta go, I hear gunshots."
Gunshots in a rural area are not unusual. So Mary didn't worry about it.
My mom probably thought my dad had saw a snake and was, killing a snake.
Now that her parents have vanished, Mary wonders whether there might be another explanation for the gunshots. But neither Mary's phone call nor the odd findings in the house give investigators a clear idea where the Lewises might have gone.
There was a discussion that they may have, been out because of the flooding got washed away. There's always this hope that they're still alive.
Three or 4 days after my parents had gone missing, the storms subsided, water's down, so a massive grid search started. Because of the flood, we actually went up searching several local tributaries, just in case, washed down a creek somewhere.
The search and rescue operation stretches on over a week.
They were cadaver dogs at this point. I figure after a week, you're not looking for live people, so they send out trained cadaver dogs. That hits you.
They just didn't vanish into thin air. Question is, where did they go? At this point, we're taking any lead we can get. Now we're into October, and in Missouri, October and November is deer season. The deer hunters are out in force, which we're looking at that as a good thing.
We developed a flyer. We asked people as they were out scouting for their deer or turkey to keep their eyes open.
Just over a month after the disappearance, a call comes in. Something has been found in the woods 31 miles from the Lewis farm.
Just as we had hoped, a gentleman that was out looking for deer signs, a vehicle. When they ran that plate number through the state computer system, they got a hit. That truck belonged to Charles and Grace Lewis. When investigators descended upon the location of the truck had been burned. At this point, they've secured the vehicle. taken it to a secure location, went through it with a fine-tooth comb. Unfortunately, they found nothing. The fact that the truck was in such a remote area, the fact that it was burned, that speaks volumes. That tells us somebody's trying to cover up evidence. That kind of forced us to go back and take a look from the beginning. What did we miss?
Because of the burned truck, it was clear that this wasn't just a normal disappearance. And this most likely was a homicide investigation.
One month into the search for Charles and Grace Lewis, sheriff's investigators have found the missing couple's truck burned beyond recognition.
When investigators saw its burnout condition, it was very obvious. This is foul play, and the Lewises are probably dead.
When we got a call that they had found the truck, I felt sick. We still don't know where they are.
As with any case, you're looking for a motive.
Well, first, when you think somebody's just missing, everybody's on your side. But eventually the gossip and the whispers start. Well, I hear that he was going to inherit the whole farm.
The children that we dealt with in the Lewis family were the oldest three. It was Charles Jr., went by Chuck, Mike, and Mary.
Investigators became aware that there had been some infighting within the family of the Lewises due to a family business.
Chuck had started a business called Data Safe. There were other family members, including Mike and Mary, who owned stock in it, as well as 2 or 3 other people who were non-family members. Chuck was the president, ran the company. His father, who was a retired accountant, took care of the books. The company was in the process. They were looking at selling it, but there was some disagreements about how that was going to happen.
Basically sabotaged that. Chuck and my dad got into some type of argument.
During the interviews with the family, Mike and Mary were pointing their finger at Chuck, who was denying any involvement with his parents' disappearance. But we really don't know who to believe and who not to.
There came a point in time where 3 children were asked to take polygraphs, and they all agreed to do so.
All of the family members that were tested, examined on a polygraph, were truthful, with the exception of Chuck. His test was inconclusive. Chuck was suffering from Lyme's disease. Because of that, he had some involuntary muscle movement, which just would cause you to have really terrible polygraph charts.
The limited results have investigators looking for answers in the long-brewing family conflict. Mike and Mary share that a family tragedy years earlier had opened a rift between Chuck and their father.
John Stephen Lewis was one of the Lewis children who was deceased at the time that we opened this investigation.
In 1973, Charles and Grace Lewis were away on a family trip. John Stephen, teenager at the time, was left home alone.
I was very young, but I still remember the call coming in. Turns out my brother John Stephen was found deceased and decayed in one of the bedrooms in the house.
It's a devastating tragedy. The autopsy listed the manner of death as undetermined.
It turns out that John Stephen had been arrested some months before for drugs.
In the investigation report, at the time, there was indications actually from Grace Lewis. Now, John Stephen claimed he owed money for a drug dealer and that he was afraid that the drug dealer might give him a hot shot, overdose him, and kill him.
My brother, Chuck, was Steve's dealer.
The Lewis family did suspect Chuck in John's death.
My brother John Stephen's passing was a huge, huge wedge with my brother and dad. A lot of animosity was there.
Chuck apparently had been involved in drugs as well, but apparently from the investigation, he was not in contact with John when John died.
John Stevens' death is only the beginning of a deep conflict within the Lewis family.
According to the family, Charles Jr. didn't know the difference between company money and personal money. 3 weeks prior to the Lewises going missing, they had a board meeting, and Charles was told he was either going to step down or the company was going to be dissolved because of the finances.
My dad had laid into Chuck and told Chuck at this board meeting, he said, we'll just fire you. You won't be president anymore. Strangely enough, which was very rare for my brother, he said, okay, that's it. For Chuck to just say okay and be quiet was very, very unusual. Then, some 3 weeks later, my parents are missing.
Investigators searching for Charles and Grace Lewis believe the couple's disappearance may be related to a conflict over a family business.
After we learned that Charles Jr., Chuck, was living basically on the company, Charles Sr. was becoming concerned about the money and the cash flow from the company. And so Chuck's father was really putting a stop to his lifestyle.
You have to look at, who stands to gain, or in some cases, who stands to lose. And in this case, it was more about who stood to lose, and that was Charles Jr.
Because of his Lyme's disease, physically, Chuck would not have been able to have caused the disappearance of his family personally.
They were starting to put together a working theory that Charles Jr. hired someone to get rid of his parents.
And so they obtained a search warrant or subpoena for Charles Jr.'s financial records in order to look into his business dealings.
Things we're looking for is a large transaction, money being moved from one account to another.
But there was no indication that there was any money missing anywhere. We interviewed Chuck's acquaintances, but there was nothing that came up in those interviews.
Or someone who we thought was, looking so good as a suspect, we were finding nothing to back that up. Of course, this visit is very frustrating at times. Very frustrating.
Police turn to the media, hoping to generate new leads.
Different sources that had to all be tracked down.
In May of 1994, a call comes in from a man in St. Louis whose detailed tip catches investigators' attention. The caller has concerns about his daughter's boyfriend, 16-year-old Brent Brusan.
We were able to locate this person. He initially said that Brent did make statements to his daughter that his father was involved in the Lewis's disappearance. But Brent also made a lot of statements which were just not true. He fabricated a lot of stories.
It seems that Brent's story about his father may be yet another fabrication.
Brent himself, when I talked to him, admitted that he made up this story about the Lewises to impress some other boys, to look like he was a tough guy as well.
You go home at night, you can't help but think about it. What am I missing here? What is there that I haven't seen, that I haven't found?
Up to this point, all the leads that we've gotten have just not produced anything.
In June of 1994, 9 months into the investigation, a nearby law enforcement agency reports a recent spate of violent crimes.
We received information that some people had been burglarizing the homes of elderly people across the state of Missouri, and they were stealing jewelry, food items, and electronics. It was an elderly couple. Electronics were missing from the house. At that point, this was probably one of the best leads that we had had. It actually fit the circumstances.
Investigators soon receive word that authorities in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, have made an arrest.
In July 1994, two suspects were arrested for these burglaries. And the investigators determined that there was electronics stored in a storage facility in Tennessee, which was, in fact, searched. But we were not able to locate our stolen VCR. The investigators determined that they had been disposing of a lot of their electronics through pawn shops and flea market type sales.
We did know that it was a particular model, VCR, had been discontinued, which now kind of made that a unique piece of evidence. Initially, we were afraid that if we put that out there, the person who had the VCR might dump it, and that would be lost.
So then we thought, well, maybe our VCR.
So it was decided that we were going to make that public. And it was made public in a big way. Flyers were made. It was put out to the media. And that paid off.
On September 15th, 1994, a unknown individual had called the Potosi Police Department, making a statement that the people we were looking for lived on Pine Creek Road.
We had hoped for this. Now we had it. Big time.
Investigators in Bonne Terre, Missouri are almost a year into the hunt for missing seniors Charles and Grace Lewis, and a vague tip has told police that the people responsible live on Pine Creek Road. The anonymous call is traced to the local residence of Bruce and Barbara Williams.
Bruce and Barb both deny making the phone call that day. However, Bruce agrees to go with us to make a complete statement. Bruce comes in, we sit down. He admits that he, in fact, did make that phone call. And at this point in time, we realize that this is all dealing with the VCR.
Bruce indicates that he was given the VCR by his brother-in-law with the caveat, don't pawn this VCR. Don't sell it. But he found himself in a position where he needed the money, so he took the VCR to the pawn shop and pawned it.
Once this wanted poster came out, he was afraid that if he was going to be connected to the murder.
Bruce relates that he received the VCR from his brother-in-law, Robert.
So at this point, we bring Robert in. Robert initially says that he got this VCR from somebody at a flea market.
He's saying he knows nothing, but he's feeling that pressure, and the story starts to come out.
May, Brother William, nephew Grant, we started talking about rustling some cattle.
When Robert first identifies Brent Roussan, it's like, okay, we've already talked to Brent. Now, holy crap, he really is involved in this. Robert's initial statements were that he thought they were going there to steal cattle. However, something had went wrong during the theft.
We all heard the tractors as it was driving along. It was Mr. Lewis mowing his grass. Next thing I knew, they were both dead.
According to Robert, Willie was the one.
Investigators head to Williams' home to make contact, but news of Robert's conversation with police seems to have spooked him.
William Roussan had gone on the run, and so a manhunt had to be started to get him.
Although William is in the wind, investigators are able to locate his 17-year-old son.
Did I read you right earlier this morning?
Brent originally, when he was brought into custody, says that he was with his girlfriend at their prom the day that the Lewises disappeared. But the prom occurred 2 or 3 nights after the disappearance, so he has no alibi.
Robert Roussan says that he can offer evidence to corroborate his version of events.
Robert agreed after his confession, and as part of his cooperation, he had drawn a map and shown us where the bodies were buried.
Robert took them to a farm on the edge of Bonne Terre.
According to Robert, they left the Lewis farm with the Lewis bodies in the back of the truck. They drove to William's girlfriend's residence in rural Washington County. It was there that they dug the grave in the barn lot.
You dragged them in the tarp, is that?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Who dug the hole first?
William did.
Coming up on almost a year now, and I get a call from Sergeant Conway of the state police. He says, "We're pretty sure we know where your parents' bodies are." I mean, my heart is just racing. We watch from behind the fence as they load 2 blue tarps in the back of a wagon. I can only assume it's my mom and dad.
As a result of the autopsy recovery of dentures and glasses, we were able to match those to Grace and Charles Lewis. They determined that Grace had been shot 4 times, resulting in her death, and Charles had been shot 5 times, resulting in his death. There's a little bit of a sense of relief because we've been able to give the family some closure, but this investigation still has a long ways to go.
The hunt is on for William, but William's nowhere to be found. Seems like he's just disappeared until we receive a call. He had been contacted by William.
Willie was hiding out at a vacant farm property nearby. So he was armed. Multiple uniformed officers went to the area and were able to take him into custody. Willie initially, when interviewed, says that he met the Lewis family in 1989 because he had escaped from jail and was hiding out on their property. According to Willie, Mr. Lewis gave him $20 to kind of get him started.
Investigators want to know if the Lewises had already been kind and generous. Why had he hurt them?
Willie tells us during his interviews that he was being paid $500 by Chuck, Charles Jr., to kill his family.
Because I have some people that I'd like to do away with. Would you be interested in going? Go, I'd do it.
Investigators on the case of Charles and Grace Lewis have a killer in custody. Says that the couple's son, Chuck Jr., had paid him $7,500 to murder his parents.
He didn't care much for his father. He said he wanted to run the company. He said his father was supposed to be retired. He said he needed him out of his way to where he could run the business the way he wanted to run the business.
Willie says he had a meeting through some mysterious drug dealer out of Texas that connected him and Chuck here.
Investigators, their interest is piqued even further.
Willie was not able to tell us where this $7,500 went. We weren't able to identify this mysterious third person. We had our narcotics unit involved in trying to locate him. No luck whatsoever. Then that story changes. And he tells us that he wasn't paid anything. At other points, he says Chuck gave him $100 at the initial meeting with a promise to pay more later on. From the initial point, Chuck had been a suspect in this case. There was issues with the family. There was issues with the business. But when we looked at Chuck, we weren't able to find anything to actually indicate that he would have caused the disappearance or the murder of his family. It was just sounded like a good story, but none of it could be substantiated. The closest to reality was, and it just went bad from there.
William had worked in the area He knew that Charles and Grace had cattle. He knew they were there alone. And he knew they were in a fairly remote location. So it was almost a perfect setup to steal cattle.
Robert Rusian pled guilty to murder in the second degree and received 15 years in the Missouri Department of Corrections.
Both William Rusan and his son Brent are given jury trials.
Robert was willing to testify to his participation in the crime, and he walks the court through exactly what happened.
Robert, William, and Brent hid in a wooded area and observed the farm. William had brought along a .22 caliber rifle. Brent was supposed to wait for Robert and William to secure the house. But Charles spotted Brent and things changed considerably.
Next thing I knew, I heard shots. Mr. Bush wasn't focused, driving lawnmower north.
Inside the house, Grace overhears the commotion.
My mom really just wanted to check on, the love of her life and make sure that, he was okay, which turns out he wasn't.
Grace come out the door and was shot. She was not dead.
And William tells Brent, finish her off, to which at that point he shot her in the head. They roll the bodies up in a tarp and hide them behind a shed. And then they proceed with cleanup. They return later. And it's at that point that they went in and took the VCR and left the scene.
At this point, they brought with them a trailer to steal cattle. And they load the two bodies and the two head of cattle that they're going to steal. And they leave. They go back to where Willie was living. And then they bury the bodies in this hole in the backyard. The night of the murder, it stormed really bad. There was some local flash flooding, and so that also, in retrospect, caused a lot of evidence to be washed away. A couple days after the Lewis's murder and the theft of the cattle, Willie sold the two head of cattle at a livestock auction for $1,040. Both William and his son Brent were convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder. Brent was given a life sentence, and William was sentenced to be executed.
I was so hit with just a flood of emotions, like you can't believe. Out of all the couples I've ever met in my life, I've never seen anybody with a love like they had for each other. Never, ever. I cherished it, and I miss them. I want to remember them for the faith that they had, for the love that they showed me and others, how to give back and share with other people. That's how I remember them.